Hello everyone, I want to say a massive special thank you to StoriesFablesGT, the other narrator you can hear in this video. Make sure you go and check out his channel and look out for the other part of our collaboration that he's going to be uploading simultaneously to this video. I really enjoyed working with him and he's genuinely a really nice person. I had a lot of fun on this video and we got some great stories for you. I hope you all enjoy and have a great day. I'll speak to you all soon. To give some explanation and background knowledge for this whole encounter, I was around 15 at the time of this. I was out camping in the middle of nowhere with my family and part of my extended family. I was the oldest kid out there in the RV, so you can probably understand how it felt to have no one else to do stupid stuff with a good 2-year age gap between me and the inferiors. It was almost like Navarra when I got to the campgrounds and met the other teenagers. These were all people we knew fairly well from previous camping trips, so it was considered normal to hit it off with them from the start, acting like we'd known each other forever within an hour. Now to the story. My parents trusted me a lot. Not to lie, I liked my fun, but I liked getting home in time for dinner equally as much. So, when I was gone most of the day with other people from my camp, they didn't think much of it. The only rule was that I had to be back at the RV to eat dinner, and before 8:30 in the evening. So picture this. A group of 6 teenagers 15 to 16 out in the middle of the woods with no adult supervision for the vast majority of the day. Just a recipe for success right there. But this particular day, we found a neat little deer trail we hadn't found in 2 years before we'd been there. On second thought though, it didn't really seem like a deer trail. Its snakes were a really thick part of underbrush, maybe 30 cm of clear ground, 3.5 feet clear of the brushes and branches going upwards. It's a really hard thing to pick out of the brush unless you've either seen one before or know what you're looking for. It was promptly explored, marked with a broken branch outside of the entrance and quickly forgotten. Except, I remembered this special little tunnel at night. So while we were all eating dinner, one of the adults proposed that we play manhunt out in the woods at night. Not everyone was totally on board with the idea, but in the grand scheme of the plan, they were quashed down like autumn leaves. Everyone grabbed a flashlight, and everyone was assigned to a team. For those of you who aren't sure what manhunt is, here's an explanation. Everyone playing's given a flashlight, and they are divided into 2 groups. It's basically like a glorified flashlight tag. But there's a catch. As you catch people, you have to correctly identify who they are, and if you can, they join forces with the hunters. The last man standing gets a candy bar or something, whatever the prize being offered is. That's how we played it anyway. For the first round, I get lumped in with the runners, those who are getting chased by the hunters. We get a 5-minute head start to run, climb a tree, whatever the hell we want to do to evade the hunters. Usually I'm the one up in the tree, but that never really worked out as being the winning spot. So in order to try and secure the win for once, I decide to play cat and use one surefire method as escape. And the hiding spot was the rude little path through the thicket. It took most of the head start time to find the damn thing, but it was well hidden and out of the way. As I passed hiding spots, I heard hushed, smothered whispering between siblings who were questioning my actions, like a bird's wings rustling when it's fluffing its feathers. It should be noted that I had bat hearing, My ears are possibly my greatest asset in this game, but when I'm reaching the destination, I hear the short blast of an air horn announcing that 5 minutes are up. I swan dove into this little path in the undergrowth, shuffling on my hands and knees until I'm about halfway in, crouching down like some huge quill. The hunters are doing an initial sweep through the trails looking for obvious hiders and people caught out trying to change spots. When they finally reach me though, they reach a dead end and go straight back. I try to readjust myself and crawl further down the tunnel. I honestly don't know how it happened, but I found an even more hidden path within that one, and accidentally I dragged my stupid body down the rabbit hole, except instead of ending in a dead end, it ended in a slightly hollow. I don't ever want to describe exactly what I found there. I'm sorry that I can't. It was a young woman who had been there for a long time. I'll leave it at that. I screamed and froze. My body shuddered. Stains from the body actually formed on my jeans. It's the worst thing I've ever seen. I just froze there, like marble for what felt like hours, and then I heard someone else coming along the path. Have you ever been so scared that for one insane moment, you truly consider something incredibly stupid as a viable option of escape? That was one of them times. I let out a short, trembling whimper and start moving. Whoever was on the path stopped and eagerly started moving forward again. I can hear their panting, uneven breaths of a man, a horrible marker of whoever it was getting closer and closer to me by the second. By some wondrous, beautiful miracle, he misses a path leading to the brushy hollow. I then hear him moving further down past where I am, but there's constant clicking noises. The occasional effort to remain silent and sharp noises. He's very close towards the entrance but moves on. I hear a low curse somewhere towards the end of the tunnel, and I blast out of the undergrowth like a bullet, making cracks the whole time, and obnoxious rustling is all around me as I heard the man sharply intake a breath beginning to move towards me. The hoarse deep panting was getting closer and closer to me, a testament to how slow I was at exiting. Somehow I exploded out of the entrance, got onto my wobbly half asleep legs, and started booking it down the trail. The unknown pursuer was close behind me for a bit, but it seemed like he was too exhausted to chase me for long. I know everybody loves to rip on the fact that people in horror movies always move slow and trip, but in all honesty, tripping is something I'm amazed I didn't do. With adrenaline coursing through me at the speed of Usain Bolt, I managed to get out of there. It felt like an eternity, but I finally reached the main trail running back to the camp, and sprinted down it screaming bloody murder. Confused faces looked out from the trees. I think someone called after me. Reaching the camp was easy, but trying to explain why I woke up everyone was not. I remember when I choked out the words, a profound silence set over the camp. I really don't remember a whole lot from that point on. I know the police are called, and my mum and auntie ran shrieking and wailing along the trail calling for other kids to come back. When someone's yelling like that, you don't ignore it, and they round up everyone in 30 seconds flat. The police find a man out in the woods, creeping along the trail clutching a knife, a black garbage bag with lots of sharp instruments, and a saw was found on the abandoned trail, some speckled with dried blood. I don't think there's really any getting over it. I still have nightmares of the man chasing me, breathing heavily down my neck trying to catch me.
A rest stop for the night. Forgive me for the horrible formatting. I am doing this on a new tablet. I've been addicted to reading these stories and needed to create an account to submit this story. About 3 weeks ago, my mum told my brother and I this story. Straight up gave me the yucky feeling. Sally was a lifelong family friend. Sally would frequently visit her friends and family in Oklahoma. We live in a small town in southern Ontario, Canada. Sally would drive. Sally would drive straight, 20 hours at least, overnight, to get from our town to another town. She did this simply to save money, and obviously wanted to arrive as soon as she could. Now that you got my prelude, here is the story. About 30 years ago, she decided to head south on a visit. No big deal, she's done this a few times. So she packs up and heads out. At some point after driving about 4 to 15 hours, she started getting pretty tired. Being as it was probably the 80s, it was a little safer. She decided that she would stop at a rest stop. It was more of a traveler's stop, my mum said, to sleep for a little bit and resume her drive first thing in the AM. She parks in a very well-lit and busy rest stop. She parks right by the lights and felt at ease because there were an abundance of travelers stopping and going. She gets out for a bathroom break, comes back and settles in her car. About then, an RV pulls up beside her, and elderly couple get out. The man asks her about coming from Canada. They strike up a little conversation. Nothing odd. The couple talk to Sally for a bit. They tell her they are driving from the south, going north, and just needed to have a sleep for the night. They wanted to talk because they were unsure if a rest stop was okay to stop at, but seeing Sally, they were at ease. They say good night and good trip, and the couple went back in their RV. Sally locked her doors up and went to sleep. 2/3 of an hour later, Sally woke up with a really unsettling feeling. She looks around. Nothing. A few people going in the stop. Parking lights are all on. She assumes she is feeling bad because she's tired and a car isn't the best to sleep in. After 10 minutes, she said that this feeling actually got worse, and it was a jarring, queasy, uneasy feeling. She sits back and tries to shrug it off. This didn't work, and apparently she had every red alarm and instinct telling her that she needed to go. She panics, starts her car and peels off. She doesn't care where. She just knew she had to get away from there. So about 20 miles down the road, she finds a motel and gas station / restaurant stop. She decides to see if she could get a room for what little money she had. She converses with the person in charge. He cuts her a deal, and he doesn't want a young woman driving alone at night. She gets a key, pops in her hotel room, and sleeps for the night. No issues, all in peace. Around 9 AM, she wakes up, showers, changes clothes, and decides to relax for a few. She turned on the TV, and what was on it actually gave me chills. There was a breaking news story about an elderly couple killed in the middle of the night. The news shows the RV that Sally was parked next to, exact spot, exact rest stop, and she sees the fast food drink cup she dropped on accident that rolled under her car. Sometime during the night, a man broke into their RV and killed them, then left. Presumably right before Sally had left. The man was never caught. Sally, since then, stopped at hotels for the night and avoided rest stops.
So let me start off. I'm going to say that I'm naturally jumpy. I'm really wary of my surroundings. I'm not a quiet or shy person. I try and avoid people. I do, however, feel like I have a great sense of when something's wrong or strange and try and avoid it. I'm from a small country in Europe where murder or crime is generally rare, so you can imagine that people aren't afraid to walk around alone. However, I rarely go out by myself at night, just because I'm from a small town and the surrounding woods creep me out. When I'm with my friends, however, I do enjoy night strolls. So last week, me and my best friend went on our usual walk. We know the roads really well, and together we have lots of fun, so we never think about scary things that could happen. So the first 3/4 of our path is well lit by street lamps, and there are houses around, just not a lot of them. But they are. Then we arrive at the tunnel from where there's no lights, and asphalt road turns into a rocky pebble one. We come from there and spot a white van standing in front of the tunnel to the side of a ditch that runs there. It's not turned on and we're really creeped out by it, but we just joke about how someone's gonna follow us. When we pass by, I mention that I think I see a silhouette of someone inside, but my friend gets angry at me for scaring her. After we cross the tunnel, the path turns left, and you have to walk uphill. It's not a long or hard walk before you come on top of that hill and have to go down again. From that point on, you are surrounded by woods on one side, with an open hoops field on the other. It's really dark, but we continue having a fun conversation for about 5 minutes or so, before the lights start shining from behind us. It's not weird for cars to pass there, as lots of farms are like a mile or two ahead, so we move to the side and continue walking slow to let the car by. However, we look back again and realise it's not a car, but actually the white van from before. We kind of freak out but hope it's gonna pass, and it doesn't. We keep walking slowly for another 50 to 100 meters and the van is slowly trailing behind us. When we speed up, we hear it rev up as well, and when we slow down, it does also. I bump my friend in the shoulder, looking her straight in the eyes and say, "Run. The field to the left. Now." We both make a run for it as fast as we can, almost tripping on piles of soil, because there's a lot of them in the hoops fields. We finally jump down and behind one of the bumps on the ground and just wait. The van stops, turns around, and has the headlights on and 2 men exit. They have hoods on, in all black. They're each holding flashlights, shining it frantically in our direction, scanning the field. I can't tell you how harrowing this moment is. I think a minute or so passes by before they enter the van, turn it around, and try and find us. We've never been this freaked out and we just ran home through the field. The houses start again by the end of it, and we only felt safe when we got there. I don't know who the people were, and I've never been followed like this before. I just think we'll stay off that path for a long time now.
Close encounter with a serial killer on a highway rest stop. This encounter happened in the summer of 2006, when I was 20 years old. I didn't get my driver's license until January of that year, and driving opened up so many doors for me that I took a lot of solo road trips to my friend's house in New England and mid-Atlantic states. I also looked young for my age and was often mistaken for a high school student in my early 20s. I was driving alone on I-78 on a random July day, on my way to visit my friend in southern PA for a long weekend. Her parents were away and we had the house to ourselves, and were planning on drinking, hot tubbing, and watching Planet Earth drunk. It had just come out. Maybe run around some cornfields at night. I was so excited and had a great drive, listening to good music, and it was a beautiful day for driving. Right after I crossed the border from New Jersey into Pennsylvania, I stopped at one of the first rest stops to get gas and snacks for the last part of my drive. I have tried to figure out which rest stop this was, and I can't ID it, but It was a gas station with a large mini-mart. Opposite the gas station was the on-ramp back to I-78 West, and parallel to the on-ramp was a dirt road which comes into play later. I was heading into the store when a man in his late 30s or early 40s approached me. He was a stocky guy, decently tall, I'm 5'1", had on a plain black tee and jeans with dark brown hair, and moustache and goatee. He had come out of a black pickup truck, parked a few spaces away from my car. He had a super intense gaze, and immediately creeped me out. He just had a crazy energy about him. I don't really get vibes from people that often, but this was so strange. He stood too close, his gaze was crazy direct and focused. His word choice was strange. Immediately set off all my alarms. He asked if I was from the area, despite my Connecticut license plate, where I was headed and if I knew of anything fun to do, because he had plans later and time to kill beforehand. He invited me to go play mini-golf or watch a movie with him. I didn't answer any of his questions, declined his invitation to hang out, and told him I didn't know the area, and walked away towards the store. I was blown away he asked me to go somewhere with him. It was so random and uncomfortable. As I was walking away, he actually screamed out, "You're gorgeous!" And the volume and tone made my hair stand on end. It was super aggressive and inappropriate. And he startled a family walking out of the store. It was so loud. I didn't turn around but went inside. He came into the store shortly after and was staring at me. So I went to use the bathroom and stayed in for at least 10 minutes, texting my friend about this creep. When I came out, he wasn't in the store anymore, so I took my time buying drinks and snacks, sour bright crawlers and trail mix being my obligatory road trip food, and went out to gas up my car. I was relieved his car was gone, and started thinking about the rest of my drive and getting excited to see my friend. When I pulled up on the road to get back to the highway, I hear someone persistently honking his horn, and see this creep show on the dirt road, parallel to the on-ramp in his truck, honking, shouting and waving at me to drive over to him. He was directly facing the gas station, and he had been waiting for me to pull up. I immediately freaked out and jumped on the on-ramp back onto I-78. He pulled onto the highway after me, and I called my friend extremely scared. I drove so fast and probably dangerously, and looking back, am lucky that I didn't get into an accident, but I didn't know what to do. He didn't follow me for that long, and I think after a few exits, he pulled off. My friend and I had a backup plan that if I saw his car again, she would direct me to a police station the next town over from her house, instead of going directly there, and leading some freak to us. I didn't see the car again, and went to my friend's, but the last hours of my drive, I was extremely tense and anxious. I remember checking my mirrors regularly for this black pickup truck. It all ended well. I got to my friend's house safely, and we had a nice weekend. The encounter was definitely creepy, but over the years, I didn't put much thought into it. A few years ago, 2014, I was talking with another friend who was big into serial killers, and mentioned my encounter, jokingly suggesting this was a serial killer. I had met and told her my experience. She was fascinated, and wanted to Google active serial killers in the Pennsylvania area at the time. The first hit was for Adam Leroy Lane, and he looked almost exactly like the man I met back in 2006. Obviously, it could be my mind, filling in the blanks, but the basic characteristics: 40s, tall but stocky, brown hair with mustache and goatee, and the time, area, all match. In my memory, he was a little bit slimmer than the picture, and it was 2006, not 2007, when he was actually convicted of murdering women. Still, it's an odd coincidence, and one I've never forgotten.
I remember something that happened to my best friend, and I, a few years ago, figured I might share it. While my best friend at the time and I were seniors in high school, we went on a trip to visit my grandma a couple of hours away from my town in Georgia, USA. The town we lived in was comparatively small for the state, but was one of the biggest towns within a few hours. But we had to travel about 2.5 hours through tiny, somewhat redneck towns to get to my grandma's place. We're on our way back home when we had to stop at the gas station literally in the middle of nowhere. I mean, I'm talking cornfields, cotton fields, streets with no signs or lights, not even stop signs, and definitely no cell service. The convenience store attached to the gas station had maybe a couple of snacks inside, but looked deserted from the outside. No other cars or people in sight, I mean, and we didn't even bother to get anything other than gas. I paid with my card, mainly because I don't want to leave my 5'1", 100-pound friend alone in the car while I go inside. Another car pulled up on the other side of the single gas pump while I was just starting to pump gas. And because of everything I'd read on here, I already had a weird feeling and decided to stay alert and stand outside of the car with my driver's side door open while I pumped the gas. I want to see what's going on though, and I see a thin 50-ish old man get out of his car and seem to be paying at the pump and standing beside his car while he got gas. But after a few seconds, he walked around the pump to maneuver himself around my car, to stand within only a foot of me, asking if he could pump my gas for me. Luckily, the gas nozzle was locked, so it was pumping without me having to hold it, and I immediately placed myself between the opening door and the man, and prepared to either shut the door with me inside it, or move it and slam it behind me to protect my friend if necessary. I calmly told him that it was fine, no thank you. He looked me up and down with the corner of his lips tilted up and said, "3 girls like you shouldn't be out here all alone, and you definitely shouldn't be here by yourself. Let me help you, baby," and covered my hand with his own as he reaches for the gas pump that I'm holding. I mean, literally, I'm holding it. I jerked my hand out from underneath his and slammed my car door shut, thinking the last thing I'd want is him jumping in my car and driving away with my friend in the passenger seat. Orange flags start tinting red, and my usual overly polite demeanour turned serious as I remembered something I'd seen here that said it's better to be safe than sorry. So I responded, "Sir, get away from me. I can pump my own gas and I've already said no thank you. Leave us alone." He doesn't move, only raised his chin and manages to make eye contact with me, all lip tilt gone. I stared him down and figured I got enough gas to last us the time that we needed to get the hell out of wherever we were. So I maintained eye contact and pulled the nozzle out and basically threw it back onto the pump before getting into my car and drove away before he had even moved. As we drove away, I glanced in the rear view and saw that his car wasn't even being filled up with gas, telling me he was driving by and deciding to help a damsel out in distress. My friend's literally shaking the entire ride home, telling me she would have just let the man pump her gas, but she's glad that she's with someone so confident. It's a creepy, helpful man in the middle of nowhere in a ghost town in Georgia. I hope I never see you again.
Please, don't shoot me. Here's a little bit of backstory. This happened back in the fall of 2016. I was a newlywed, 18, and moved halfway across the country to live with my husband. I was in a new town and had no friends, My husband deployed in the early spring of 2016. A few months into deployment, I was lonely and wanted to head home. I decided to make the 16-hour trek home alone. I packed up my essentials and my cats. I left at 11 p.m. because I couldn't sleep. I was about 4 hours into my drive, and I was growing tired. I pulled into a well-lit public rest stop so I could catch some shut-eye. I pulled my car into a spot right under a light, and I made sure cars were nearby. It's about 3 in the morning at this time, and I fall asleep. Next thing I know, I hear a knuckle tapping on my driver's side window. Sleepily, I wake up and see an older man, about mid-40s, kneeling down to my window. Stupidly, I open my driver's side door. Man. Please, don't shoot me! Me. I won't. What do you want? Man. My wife and I are stranded here. We need money. Do you have some? We're right over here. Points to a van parked in the dark off behind him. If you want to follow me. Me? No man. I'm good. I don't have any money, I'm sorry. At this point, I'm beginning to feel like something is wrong. Man. Oh, come on. I swear I'm up to no harm. Come over to my van. My wife is in there. Me. Sorry, but I have no money. I'm using the rest of my money to go home. Man. All right, miss. God bless. God bless. With that, he stumbles off to the next car on my right to do the same thing. By now, I'm wide awake, and I'm feeling scared. I turn on my car and peel out of the lot. I don't know what he wanted. I didn't see a woman in the van he kept pointing at, but I didn't want to find out. Man in the rest stop parking lot, who most likely wanted to kidnap me? Let's not meet again.
This happened to me a few nights ago. I'm a 25-year-old female, 120 pounds, and I was out with my thoroughbred Shane, doing fitness work on the cross-country course. If you guys don't know what that is, imagine a huge area full of fields, ditches, woods, with jumping places. Basically that. We're getting ready to head in from an evening of hard work. It wasn't dark, but slowly getting there, prompting me to head in for the day. As we're walking around the area we'd been working, my horse started refusing to go near a patch of woods. He had gone by it several times that evening, so I urged him to investigate. It was then that I heard that I must believe is a human voice. I realised somebody had been watching us the entire time. Now the property's on almost 1,000 acres, and this section is nowhere near a road, so this person had been very intentionally making their way very close to where a rider could potentially be. I don't want to startle the horse, so I calmly turned him around and began a fast walk around the patch of woods, giving it a very wide berth, with intentions of heading straight out of there back to the main barn. As I got to the middle of the field, however, Shane halted, and although by then it was almost dark, I realised something. There are people in the woods across from the one in front of me, which is my safest exit. So I now have somebody in the woods maybe 50 yards or so behind me, and what sounded like multiple people in the woods 50 yards or so in front of me. I briefly considered taking another exit route, but as I mentioned before, this was very far off the main road, so my immediate thought process was that they didn't walk there. Yeah, Shane and I couldn't have beat them to the gate, but if they had a vehicle of sorts, they would catch up as I was opening it. We stood there for maybe 30 seconds and simultaneously came to the conclusion, if we go now, we will beat them. We basically bolted across the field, slowed up slightly to cross a ditch in the woods. the one they were trying to surprise block me at, and flew to the gate beyond it. I jumped off, unlatched the gate, and didn't even stop to mount the horse. He's very tall and I'm of average height. English saddles are different than Western, and I'm not that one of the cool people who can just swing up. I just grabbed his reins and together we bolt to the barn. I can hear things in the distance now. They're hollering, "There's people out there at the entrance, guys, come here." As soon as I started making a fuss, a four-wheeler started up from just behind the gate and hauls away. A police report is made, and the next day there was evidence found of 3 four-wheelers, so that makes sense since I was seeing multiple people, and yes, they were surrounding me. We aren't going to stop riding out there, but the barn owners are taking some precautions, and we won't be out there alone or at night anymore. I have no idea who they were or why they were following us, but it freaking terrifies me. I'm so thankful that my horse was hypersensitive to the surroundings, because without him forcing me to pay attention, I may never have noticed what was happening.
My sister met a killer. My sister, who was 20 at the time, was stationed in England. She's Air Force at that time. She unknowingly had entered a very unsettling friendship with a man around the same age as her. They worked the same shifts and hung out on a regular basis. As their relationship got closer, he would start to push the boundaries more and more. One day, he had come over to her dorm and had stripped naked behind her and changed into his gym clothes. He would try to touch her and even get mad and scare away her other male friends because he was jealous. It got to the point where she would run into him in public and completely random places and wait outside her door for hours. When things started to get abusive, she told him to leave her alone. He did for a while, but then she started to get phone calls from him in the middle of the night. They were of him heavy breathing into the phone. One night she got the call that would haunt her for life. While they were friends, he used to house sit for a family who was out of town on holiday. They had a cat who he would also watch for them. My sister had met the cat and said he was the sweetest thing. Yet her friend grew to deeply hate the poor thing out of seemingly no reason. So this phone call. It started out with a deep breathing, and then he spoke. His voice, it was creepily calm, and he proceeded to tell her what had happened with long, slow pauses in between. He talked about how it was late, and the cat was meowing out of hunger and interrupting his TV show. He finally had it, when the kitty sat in his lap and fell asleep. He got up, grabbing a can of food, and went upstairs to the bathroom. He filled the tub with boiling water and opened the can of food. He waited for what felt like ages when he finally heard the soft chirps of the fluffy critter. He let the cat eat, and then he grabbed the helpless animal by the neck and drowned it. Later he drove to the beach and tossed it into the ocean. There was a long pause as my sister nearly drops the phone in horror. His breath started to get more heavy and he laughed before hanging up. Her biggest regret was never reporting him. She never saw him after that, and later desperately looked for him out of the sheer terror he would do it again. After asking around for a week, he was reported missing as a missing AWOL airman. Missing posters and the whole 9 yards. He's out wandering England after killing a cat. I remember reading somewhere that serial killers first kill animals and slowly work their way up to children and then adults. The first killing usually leaves a bloodlust for more and more, never to be satisfied. So, to the asshole that killed a cat, let's not meet.
So let me set the stage first. Growing up, I had a neighbour who I spent as much time with as my own family. He also had sons a few years younger than myself, and we're all friends. They lived across the road from us. Behind their house was a heavily wooded area, with a wooden bridge with an overgrown road partially up it. At the end of this road was an old mobile home trailer from the 60s or 70s. It was captured by my neighbour's father, who was a state trooper during a drug raid, and it was used as a hunting cabin for many years. At the time of this story, it was in a horrible state of repair, and by no means was it probably safe to be in. My neighbour was utilising it to store random stuff. So one night, I was over at their house as usual, and myself plus my neighbour's sons were getting bored. At this point it's around 2 AM. We decided to take the walk up to the trailer and sit there for a bit. So we gathered a flashlight and a small lantern and headed up. At first, things were uneventful. There was a light misting of rain, and it's a little chilly, but nothing bad. We sat in the trailer amid stored items and decay of the place, with the lantern for about 20 minutes just hanging out talking. We're discussing leaving when we hear footsteps outside. Now I've grown up in the woods, and the cadence of rhythm of steps people tend to make compared to animals is noticeable. There were humans and heavy step, pause, step, pauses. We had heard nothing coming up, nor had we seen anything on the way up. At this point, it's made its way to the door of the trailer and has stopped outside. We called and asked who was there, and we get the usual nothing, then literally more steps and rustlings followed by nothing. I at least had no intention to be trapped there by anyone or anything, and picked up a rather heavy metal rod that happened to be there. We whispered a plan, and after a second, I kicked the door open with enough force to slam it against the trailer, almost shutting it again while my friends shone the light out. But there's nothing. Again, no sounds. Nothing at all. We've gathered our courage, hopping out and looking around for a minute. Still, nothing to see or hear. No footprints. We have a look round and realise there's nowhere for anyone to have ran either. That's the most creepy part. It was like whoever done this to us literally vanished. I still have no explanation for it to this day. The story took place around 2 months. I lived in a rural area, about 40 miles northeast of Kansas City. I'm a 25-year-old male, 5'8" and around 200 pounds, an avid weightlifter, and know how to handle myself. My dad's a retired Marine, so my entire childhood was great and geared around hunting, being outdoors and guns. So my best friend let's call him Austin, lives out on his family's 140-acre farm in a brick house that was built in the mid-1970s. Austin ended up purchasing the house and 1 acre of land the house sits on from his grandpa. Well, Austin works for the railroad and is out of town most of the time. My girlfriend, let's call her Samantha or Sam, she often spends the weekends with me to keep me company and let her big dog Oliver run and play all over the property. This night, it all went down. Samantha was leaving work to head straight over to my place and get dinner started. I would come home after work and go to the gym. When Samantha gets to the house, she lets Oliver out to run a bit. Now the house is in the middle of nowhere, and you don't end up on this road by accident. You have to be heading there with purpose. With that being said, I recognize all the vehicles that drive on that road. When Samantha let Oliver out to run around, Samantha notices a beat-up Dodge pickup truck driving extremely slowly by the house. There's 2 scruffy-looking men who are in the truck just staring at her. Samantha said that the way the men looked at her made her feel extremely uneasy, so she hurried inside with Oliver and began dinner. I come home around 2 hours after the run-in with the creepy men. She told me all about the description of the truck to the best of her abilities. I told her that the truck didn't sound familiar, and I make a mental note of it. We are hanging out with Oliver when Samantha decided to call it a night around 11 PM. She then went on to my bedroom that has a window at head level. For someone who's over 5'5", I told her that I wouldn't be too far behind her, that I was just going to finish up a documentary on Netflix. Around 12:30 AM, I hear what sounds like a man's voice from outside the home. I stood up out of curiosity, and that's when I hear Samantha scream. I run inside the room and she said there's a man staring at her through the window, saying that he was going to do these horrible things to her, and he demanded she let him in. Here's the thing about Samantha. She's gorgeous. She has a hot librarian look without the glasses. So when she told me about the man staring at her, I didn't think much of it. Hell, I'd stare at her too. Oliver at this point knows something is up and begins to bark. He's not an aggressive dog, but he's protective. I tell Samantha to go downstairs and hide in our gun room / panic room. I follow her down, and that's when we can hear the man yelling outside the house, demanding we let him in. At this point, the man doesn't know I'm here, but Sam's car is parked outside, but my car was parked in the basement garage. Samantha sits in the gun room while I open the safe and begin preparation. I put body armor on and pull out an AR-15. This particular one begins in a pistol configuration. I walk up the basement steps and I hear the man trying to break down the front door, which sucked for him because Austin and I put a steel plate in the door frame just to stop this thing from happening. That's when I hear it though, the sound of the side door being banged on. Then I can see there's 2 of them. I can see one now staring in the window with a burlap sack on his head with eye slits. I mean, this guy's tall, every bit of 6'4", but appears skinny, like he's a meth head. He's holding a large hunting knife and gently tapping on the window. I don't think he could see my gun because he had no reaction to it. So now I know that there's 2 men outside my house, both wearing burlap sacks over their heads. Sounding creepy, I know. I hear my phone on the couch go off. It's Samantha. She tried calling the police, but the call wouldn't go through. How could she have texted if she couldn't make a call? It wouldn't have mattered anyway because the closest police station is 20 minutes away, and they have no more than 1 person on duty at a time. So calling the police out at this point is futile. The men keep asking me, where's the pretty girl at? And they just want to play with her and other stuff. Now I'm usually a pretty laid back guy, but not when it comes to her. At this point I'm mad. The fight or flight has kicked in, and all the flight is gone now. As these men are standing around 20 yards away from the side of the door of the home, just staring, I'm thinking it's now or never. I fling the door open, flip my 850 lumen weapon light on, and shine it on the creeps. At this point they know I'm armed and not messing around. As I stand there pointing this at them, they freeze for what feels like 10 hours. Then they bolt towards me. I fire AR at them. The bright muzzle flash of the gun nearly blinds me. That's when I think, great, I had built a gun with a 7-inch barrel. Anyway, I'm pretty much blind after shooting 5 rounds, but they're gone. No trace of them, which I didn't understand, because there's nowhere to hide at all. They'd have to run 100 yards in any direction to find somewhere to hide. Now Samantha ran upstairs after hearing the gunshots. I told her to stay inside because I have no idea where these guys are. So I do what any hunter does and look for a trail of blood. I see 2 separate trails leading back to the gravel road. I follow the now steady trail of blood to the road, where I see there could be murderers climbing into the same beat up Dodge truck that Samantha had seen earlier in the day driving by, being driven by a third person. I couldn't see the truck because of the small dip in the front yard that's being concealing the truck. When the driver sees me, he guns it, nearly leaving one of the men behind. When the truck finally leaves, the police are called and they came out after an hour. We gave them our statements and the police told me that I was lucky I was armed because from the sounds of it, these men were the same men that had brutally attacked 3 other women in the past weeks. I thank God every day for my AR-15 and Samantha does too. This is hands down one of the most frightening nights of our lives.